Hello, everyone. At Nasscom, we have been supporting GCCs in India through multiple engagements, especially through our annual conclave, which brings together this community on a common platform since a decade. Recently, we concluded our 11th edition of Nasscom GCC conclave from 14 to 15 September 2021. This year, with the key theme of the hybrid reality, new frontiers for GCC success, we celebrated the resilience and agility showcased by the GCC and discussed the playbook for GCCs in the new normal. The huge opportunity to deliver value and the attributes towards building a more impactful and sustainable business model. And to keep the conversation going, today we have with us Abhishek Nandi, Senior Director, Software Engineering at Lois India.
Thanks, Vaishali.
Thanks, Abhishek, for joining us. Abhishek has been with the company since February 2020 and is responsible for building engineering platforms and platform services for all of Lois, including Kubernetes platform, customer data platform, workflow engine, real use monitoring, and device monitoring platforms powering systems across stores, digital, supply chain, marketing, amongst others. He is going to share his insights on how to build a great internal engineering tech ecosystem, a playbook for organizations of the future. Welcome, Abhishek.
Thanks, Vaishali, for that intro.
So, Abhishek, let's begin, okay? Can you tell me what are your top 3 considerations today when you think of modernizing the tech stack? And how different are they from pre-COVID times?
Okay. So Vaishali, from a tech stack perspective, right, COVID or pre-COVID, that has not changed. What has changed essentially is the speed and way we do things. So if you were to look at our numbers, right, on a 2-year comp growth for .com alone, we have grown 151%. So that means our systems had to scale all throughout COVID. We have been seeing phenomenal traffic and we have been able to scale our systems gracefully. So what essentially has changed is bringing in the people aspect of things, right? We work in a virtual environment. We've been supporting these systems, building these systems, building out new features for our customers throughout this period, right? And the people aspect that got into picture is not just bringing in the flexible work hours, right? Looking at the needs of people, like they would need some time off to take their kids to school or look after their health or the elderly that they were looking after, all of that. Another thing that significantly changed is like we're no longer in a defined space, right? Where we have informal way of communicating. So it is more important that we have written processes and also we need to share knowledge in the same process, right? Asynchronous communication becomes super important. Putting your thoughts out there and making sure others contribute as well is a big thing. And it not only allows us to operate in a remote environment, it also brings in that entire picture that the loudest voice no longer wins in a meeting room. Every individual gets to contribute as well. And more importantly, we have to remember this, given that it is a remote environment that we are operating in, supporting business, building new features for our customers, modernizing our entire tech stack, right? Communications have to be over formal channels and most of it has to be documented. It is no longer a need to know basis things. It is information is out there for the entire company to consume. I would say these are 3 most important considerations that has helped us sail through the last 2 years and will take us further as well.
Very relevant, Abhishek. Thanks for sharing that. I think a lot of businesses will be able to relate to that. Building on the point that you mentioned about the scaling of systems, right? So you would have seen, what are your thoughts? And if you could share some examples on switching from buying talent to building talent, right? Upskilling employees, that continues to be a game changer for a lot of businesses. So what are your thoughts? And if you could share some real examples.
Absolutely. See, today technology is not, I would say, static. Every 6 months, there's new stuff that comes out, right? If you are still planning in a mode that you'll plan out your entire year and go about building an engineering platform, that really is no longer relevant. What was relevant 6 months back might have been deprecated right now. And the same goes for upskilling as well. So one of the core behaviors at Lowe's that we follow is continue learning, right? And to do that, we have found out several mechanics that help us. One of the key things, we have our own learning platform that we have partnered with the vendor, which is available for everybody at Lowe's Tech, right? It is there for everybody to use and like try out any new skill they want to do. Other than that, teams individually organized learning circles. So this is where we would have individuals present to their own department as well as bring in other departments to share either new tech or new work that they've been doing in their space, and also learn from others. Some of my team members have been invited by the supply chain teams to go and showcase what we are doing, whereas we have also done the same thing, the stores teams as well, right? And if you look at it, right, gradually community of practices start forming. We today have a front-end community of practice, which is more than 200 people strong, which meets at a regular basis to discuss what each person is doing, and at the same time, how they're overcoming challenges with respect to tech. And it is going phenomenal. The way we learn, I would say, and the most best way we learn is by sharing experiences. I have learned a lot by reading a lot of code. I have learned a lot from others, like be it engineers, be it leaders. You can learn from anybody because the tech space is changing rapidly, and we definitely need to tag along there.
Correct, Abhishek. So, Abhishek, you mentioned that the tech is changing rapidly, right? The shelf life of technology is really
Yep.
limited, and our ways of working are also changing.
Yep.
So are the needs of every employee.
Mm.
How do you ensure productivity does not drop at the same time keep employees' well-being in mind?
Absolutely. Like I said, right, this COVID has not been a pretty time for everybody out there on the planet, right? But it did bring people aspect to the forefront, right? Productivity is not just about an individual putting in 100% or 200%, 8 hours a day or 12 hours a day. It's not that, right? Productivity, if you ask a question behind that question, right, it is about the processes that you have in your current company, the systems that you have in your current company, right? Imagine this. If an take an example of a midnight engineer. When I say a midnight engineer, a person who has an idea wakes up at the middle of the night and wants to prove that point out for a demo tomorrow morning, right? In a lot of enterprises, if you look at how you were to provision a database or to get access to a system, there's a lot of red tape, right? And if you were to make it easier for that person to build a system and present that idea, you are liberating that engineer to do that innovation, or forget innovation, or at least present their idea in the right forum, in the right way, right? Engineers don't understand filling up forms or writing specific notes for getting access. They're great at writing code, right? So what we have done, essentially, I would say, we have built, so we believe in two things. You deliver value at Lowe's either by building the retail platform or by building the engineering platform. So what we are focused on is the engineering experience at Lowe's. For us, the engineer or the developer is the most important person in the room. And we are going leaps and bounds to make sure that they have the right tools at the right time to build the right things. So this really liberates them and allows them to just focus on their specific area of building the systems and not worry about how the database would scale, how the systems would scale, because that is taken care of by the platform teams.
Okay, I have a absolutely next follow-up question for you, Abhishek. So you mentioned the experience of the engineer is really critical, right? Now, in hybrid model of working, right, you do not have access to a reliable infrastructure and access to other critical services. And because you're in a tech ecosystem, this is really required, right? So how do you overcome this challenge when the future of work is becoming more and more hybrid?
Okay. So I would slightly say in this case, right, it's not that it's not available to us, right? We have been in the world of where we are using the cloud or we are using our own data centers. Lowe's has its own data centers, and at the same time, we also run our workloads at the store at the edge as well. So essentially, if you were to ask me, we run close to 1800 plus Kubernetes clusters, just the store space. I'm not even talking about the ones that run in GCP or one that runs in data centers, right? So infrastructure is definitely available from this aspect.
Okay.
Uh, but if you were to look at when COVID started, right, we did not know, hey, would our VPNs, our connectivity to all these systems, right, even scale? We definitely had to look at that. If you were to ask me, hey, were we prepared for all of this? No, we were not. Right? We have a beautiful office in Bangalore and Mooseville, and the new tech hub that is coming up in Charlotte, or be the offices in Canada. We've invested significantly there, be it the whiteboards that are there, or the Microsoft hubs that are there, or the rooms that are there, right? But the entire purview of or before COVID, right? It was all about people sitting in offices. We never thought that we would need everybody to connect to the VPN and get access to the systems. That is something we definitely had to look at, right? If you were to ask me from an infrastructure point of view, yes, we have that. The global crisis with respect to the chips being not being available at the rate at which we want, that definitely bring in some hindrance in terms of turning around hardware in our data center, but it has not stopped us, right? And I only believe it's gonna get better in terms of working hybrid. We are a GCC that has been operating for a while now, right? We have offices across Canada, US, and India. So we have been in that mode. It's just that it got stretched out to the edges. Now we are in India at our homes working, right? So it's just getting stretched, nothing more than that. And I believe we are prepared for that as well.
Yeah, I think thanks for sharing that, Abhishek. So it's great to see how how your GCC has really taken this challenge head on. Uh, Now, the next question is quite relevant. Okay, so there is obviously the entire future of work has a lot of dependency on technology, and it is really raising a very key ethical concern. Okay, on how organization combine people and machines. What solution do you see to maintain trust with your stakeholders in such an environment?
Okay, that's an interesting one. So, if you look back in time, right, humans have always had technology along with them, be it the first wheel that was there, be it the initial computers or initial systems that we worked with, it has been there with us. It's just that it has gotten more complex, harder to understand, harder to explain or interpret. While you're spot on that, hey, we definitely need to build trust when we are working with the systems. If you are to address that, and we are addressing that, right, it's more important to define the matrices that and have counter matrices, right? So it's not just, so let's take an example, right? Let's say we have built a machine learning solution or something related to AI, right? If you are not able to measure and have a countermeasure whether we are heading in the right direction or not, that system can definitely be gamed. We have seen several examples out there in the industry how if you don't have the guardrails for it, if you really can't explain the tech in limitants to your business, you won't be able to go ahead, right? So that is something that we need to focus on, being transparent with respect to the data that we are looking at, right? Being transparent as to what is the expectation of it, and at the same time making sure we are always measuring it. Otherwise it would not be something that we would scale with.
Very relevant points. Thanks, Abhishek. Okay, Abhishek, I know you touched about this earlier, right? When you were talking about building communities of practice, giving exposure to people to talk about what they do. But I would probably want you to elaborate on it. So the next question I think is, how do you ensure cross-functional collaboration in a hybrid work environment? So as I said, you've shared quite a few examples, but if you could, just share this because this is something which I think a lot of people are struggling with. people not coming in joint workspaces, not able to brainstorm together, not able to, ideate together is leading to some kind of a hindrance. So if you could share some examples or how you've managed to overcome this.
Absolutely. And this is pretty core to what I do, right? So we are a horizontal organization which works with all the verticals, right? And
Mhm.
one of the key things that we do is collaborate with each one of them, see if there's something repetitive that needs to be solved for, and we solve for that, right? And the best way is to tell a story, right? That's how we remember things, right? So early in 2020, right, and I was just settling in, and 3 weeks in, COVID had kicked in. I was at home working, trying to figure out how to meet people, whom to reach out to. And one thing that we should always remember, that every email that you send out, it's earmarked for one or more people to read. So if you are sending out a lot of emails, that's really not a good thing, right? You're basically consuming others' time as well, right? Now, in that environment where, and we have been hiring throughout 2020 and 2021, right? Imagine I at least saw office. Some of the people were joining in remote, full remote, right? At that point of time, like in terms of collaboration, it really is hard. Now, going back to the earlier statement that it made, that hey, if you have to document your engineering philosophies, right? Onboarding becomes super easy, right? We do have an engineer onboarding document which talks about our principles, our thought process, why we do things, how we do things, and what we believe, right? That becomes simpler. Now, coming to the point of collaboration, at the same time, if you don't have stuff documented, which is discoverable by the rest of the organization, in terms of what your team is doing, at the same time what it believes in, what it is looking to build, right? The roadmap and everything. It is really hard for others to find and reach out to you. One such example was in 2020 when I was settling in, I had a team member from the store side, right, reach out to me saying that, hey, I need this massive size of Elasticsearch which would scale X, Y, Z, and all of that, right? And a simple question is to, because they knew that we provide that other managed TV, right? Like, why do we need that? And that sparked a conversation. So they wanted to monitor all the devices that were there in the store, that self-checkout system that was getting rolled out to the stores, right? And from there on, what we did was, you mentioned the real device monitoring platform. This is how it was actually built. Post that conversation, I just went back to the drawing board, thought differently, used a different tech stack, and we reduced their entire need for the amount of data that they wanted to store. And that system scaled crazily. Today, we are rolled out to 600 stores, monitoring more than, I think, 100,000 devices and peripherals combined, right? At the same time, it has seen a phenomenal adoption with respect to the tool getting used. At the same time, it's given visibility. And none of those use cases that we are using that for today were even thought at that point of time. And this was a pure collaborative effort. And it started with him discovering that there's an offering that we have from a document, reaching out to me to have a conversation, and us putting out a document as to how we are going to solve for this pure asynchronous communication. That document today on Confluence is this big that will take you 30 minutes to read, and that got built over a period of 3 months, right? Multiple members came in, contributed on that page, likes on that page increased, people started looking at it, some people started using that as a base for some other ideas that they had, and it went on. It simply reached escape velocity, right? So if you are to collaborate in a hybrid work environment, most important thing is have a synchronous communication, have your documentations in place, calling out what you do, why you're doing this, how you're doing it, so that others in your company can learn from it and leverage that.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. These are some great, valuable insights that I'm sure any GCC would find very valuable. And I'm sure this all will be also included in the playbook for the organization that is being built. So very relevant use cases, examples, real life examples. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it and look forward to talking to you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaishali, for this.
Thank you.